Good evening. It is 7:32. We're going to start our legislative session. We'll do the pledge and we'll start the meeting.
Trustee Fritchie.
Present.
Trustee White.
Present.
Trustee Casada. Deputy Mayor Lopez.
Present.
And Mayor Levin.
Present.
The first thing on our agenda this evening is a public hearing, and there's three of them. We'll start with a public hearing, proposed local law 2024, entitled "A Local Law Amending Chapter 270 Zoning by adding a new Article 18, Electric Vehicle Charging Stations, amending Chapter 270, Section 270-29 Signs, and amending Chapter 270, Section 270-7 District Boundaries of the Village of Austin Code." Is there anyone in our virtual world that would like to speak on public hearing number 1A? Please raise your virtual hand. 0? Okay. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Opposed? Proposed, second one is public hearing B, proposed local law 2024, a local law amending Chapter 229, Streets and Sidewalks in the Village of Austin Code. Is there anyone in our virtual world that would like to talk on that public hearing? Please raise your virtual hand. Okay, can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, our last one of the evening is a public hearing on the Village of Austin 2025 budget. Is there anyone in our virtual world that would like to comment on that? And if you do, please raise your virtual hand. All right,
Nobody there?
no one's here. Yeah, okay. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
right, mayor's and trustee announcements.
Okay. I'm going to my right. Do we have any announcements, events, otherwise? Comments? No? Folks on the left? No announcements? Okay, just a reminder for me that we are not meeting next Wednesday. The board is not meeting as it is right before, the evening before Thanksgiving, people with their families, etc. We hope everybody has a lovely Thanksgiving. We will meet again, I think, the following for our regular business meeting. Administrative reports, I think, are next, right? That's all right.
Administrative reports, village manager Karen Dottori.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So,
Evening.
as Madam Clerk just stated, tonight we're opening the public hearing for the 2025 budget. And I would like to thank our village staff, our treasurer, Dale Brennan, our deputy treasurer, Elizabeth Nakari, and all of the department heads and everyone who put in many long hours and hard work that went into the budget process over the past several months. I would also like to thank the mayor and the board of trustee for the time they spent reviewing the budget last week, nearly 20 hours above and beyond their day jobs, which also took a considerable amount of time. All of this took a considerable amount of time to ensure that we are stewarding taxpayer dollars as efficiently, as effectively as possible. We have two land use board appointments tonight. I'm very happy to appoint Holly Thurston Lisboa to the planning board for an unexpired term ending December 31st, 2028. Holly, Maddie and I met with Holly today, and she seems incredibly excited to take on this position, very enthusiastic. She brings with her a wealth of experience from the real estate background as well as consulting background at Deloitte. So we are very happy to have her joining the planning board. We are also appointing, or I'm also appointing Omar Green as an alternate for the Historic Preservation Commission for an unexpired term ending December 31st, 2026. Mr. Green is a more recent Austin person. He moved here in 2021 and has a very extensive background in film and design and videography. And he has actually worked on a lot of projects that also have been filmed in Austin. So Law and Order and Blacklist are some of the projects he's worked on. We talked about how Austin is often chosen as a place to film because of its historic Main Street. So this is a nice compliment to our HPC members already, and adds a different perspective, and he's eager to put his talents to use. So in addition to the documents we have online and things that we've done in the past in print, we might have some video opportunities to showcase the work of the HPC and Austin's very treasured historic buildings. I would like, yes,
Apologize. Here is not in our agenda.
it's not in the agenda. Yeah, this is, yes, so I'm appointing them, putting it on record. That's what we usually do so it's recorded in the minutes.
Usually and I could be mistaken, usually you put their names in the agenda and sometimes the resumes as well.
I do sometimes send them in advance. I don't think we've ever put them on the agenda. We're working rapidly. So we had these interviews this morning, and we decided to, since we do have some open vacancies and have a very hard time getting quorum lately, that we wanted to make sure these were done. So I apologize for not getting that to you in advance, but I certainly will forward the information first thing tomorrow. I would also like to thank, we had 3 members resign recently due to personal and work conflicts from the planning board. So I do want to acknowledge Isabel Nguyen, who resigned recently. She had been on the planning board since 2021. Also Bobby Bowker, who served since 2019, and Brenda Burback, who served since 2022. I'd like to thank them for their service on the planning board and wish them well. And who knows what they might do in Ossining in the future when their schedules change. We have some events coming up for the holidays. Our holiday tree lighting is December 6th at 6 p.m. in Market Square. Breakfast for Santa follows the next morning at 9 a.m. at the community center, and the menorah lighting is scheduled for December 26th, also in Market Square.
Corporation Counsel, Stuart Kahan.
Thank you, Sue. Good evening, folks. Briefly, because of the Route 9A construction, a number of our land use board meetings are being moved different venues. This next week's planning board meeting will be at 16 Croton Avenue. We're going to keep an eye on how that construction is going. The state has actually started doing the construction far earlier in the day than we had anticipated. So what we don't want to do is have people essentially become landlocked at the operations center. So we, for the time being, will be moving it. It's noted in on the website. So if anyone is interested in Tuesday's planning board meeting and wants to come to the meeting in person, it will be at 16 Croton Avenue in the first floor boardroom. Thank you.
And Police Chief Aaron Zimmerman.
Good evening. Just a friendly reminder to everyone who's watching. Don't ride your bike on the sidewalk. Watched someone almost get hit earlier. Bicycles belong on the roadways, not the sidewalks. So please do your best to keep the bikes off the sidewalk. Other than that, we're going into the holiday season. So 'tis the season for things to get stolen. So please, if you have packages being delivered to your house, if you don't have someone to maybe keep an eye on them or collect them for you, have them delivered to a package delivery type place. where you can get them. Keep the pirates at bay. Please keep your doors locked. It's also a high opportunity for people to, go rummaging through cars looking for your Christmas gifts or other items. That crimes of opportunity are a thing that's very frequent this time of year. So please do your best to keep your cars locked in your package, keep an eye on your packages and things like that. Also, distracted driving this time of year. Everyone's got their minds on holiday gatherings coming up. So please do your best to drive carefully through the village. And next week, if you're planning on frying a turkey, please take it easy on the fire department and make sure that it is completely thought out and you do it outside. We don't want you, frying a frozen turkey in your garage or in your kitchen. The OFD will thank you.
Well, thank you. Organizational announcements. Is there anyone that would like to have an organizational announcement? Or announcement shall be event related only and no longer than 2 minutes in length. Is there anyone in our virtual world that would like to do that? Okay. Moving on, public comment on agenda items. Visitors are accorded a 1 4-minute opportunity to address the board on any of the resolutions on the agenda. Seeing no one. Visitor recognition. Visitors are accorded a 1 3-minute opportunity to address the board on issues not relating to the agenda, but of relevance to the common good of the village. Anyone there? All right, moving on. Village board resolutions. Approval of minutes, November 6, 2024. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby approves the minutes of the November 6, 2024 regular meeting as presented. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Any comments?
All in favor?
Aye.
Approval of voucher detail report, November 20th, 2024. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby approves the village detail report dated November 20th, 2024 in the amount of $923,368.75. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Oops, I apologize.
No, not a comment in regards to that, but I do want to thank Dale as always for all the detailed work that you do. I just have one request. PDFs. Would you mind putting the PDFs in a portrait motion instead of a landscape motion? So I don't have to keep turning my head sideways so I can read the numbers, please.
Absolutely, absolutely. We will look into that. They did start a new option within the reporting, which actually changed a bit how it's viewed. But we can go back to the legacy version of printing it. So we will look into that for you.
That'd be helpful.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, let's go one more time. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. DPW award bid excavation services in connection with the replacement of lead service lines along Spring Street. Resolved that subject to review of Corporation Council, the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby awards the bid of contract number DPW-24-02 excavation services in connection with the replacement of lead service lines along Spring Street to A.J. Penna and Sons Construction Company, 290 New Canaan Avenue, Norwalk, Connecticut, 06850, for the base bid price of $114,100 as the lowest bid of the base bid amount received from a responsive and responsible bidder. And be it further resolved that upon review of Corporation Council, the village manager is authorized to sign the aforementioned contract with A.J. Penna and Sons Construction Company. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second?
I have a question. Have we used this company before?
And he can.
Yeah,
probably
we
water
have
service.
not. We have not used them. Our engineer did vet them out. I know municipalities or actually water authorities in Connecticut. In fact, I used to work for one. It was Aquarian, Bridgeport Hydraulics. They've done a lot of work out in Connecticut. So this is in their wheelhouse, but we have not used them.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
authorizing the village manager to sign a proposal for vehicle exhaust removal system. Whereas the village has been looking into a purchase of a vehicle exhaust removal system for the central garage, and whereas in August 2023, the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, New York City Transit, purchased from Air Purifiers, Inc., an overhead vehicle pipeline exhaust system, and whereas the New York City Transit Authority Department of Material bid document included Schedule M, utilization of contracts by other agencies, and whereas the aforementioned Schedule M provided in part if a bidder is agreeable to permitting any of the listed authority affiliates or non-affiliates to place orders with it in accordance with the specification and terms of any contract resulting from this bid, the bidder shall indicate upon such agreement by checking off the appropriate boxes. And whereas the president of Air Purifiers indicated that Schedule M, that the terms of the agreement would be available for any public authority, municipality, or state agency in New York State. And whereas Air Purifiers, Inc. submitted a revised proposal to the village dated October 29th, 2024 for an vehicle exhaust removal system. And whereas the proposal includes the following language: this pricing is to be used for Schedule M utilization of contract by other agencies, MTA contract. Now therefore be resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Austin's annual procurement policy authorizes piggybacking off the MTA contract 6-32353, and be it further resolved that the village managers are authorized to sign the revised proposal dated October 29, 2024 for Air Purifiers, Inc., 1 Pine Street, Rockaway, New Jersey, 07866 for a vehicle exhaust removal system for $57,200. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a question. What is exactly being revised from what?
I could answer that. Currently, there were some exhaust fans that were in the peak of the roof of the central garage. What is being revised is a track-mounted system on both sides of central garage, so it'll feed any one of the 4 bays. The exhaust system will be mounted on by the garage door on the outside, and the exhaust of any running vehicle will be piped in almost like a vacuum hose, and you could move that hose to whatever vehicle is being like diagnosed. So it prevents like the exhaust from going throughout the whole building. It's a major upgrade.
Okay,
Budget
so
was 75,000, this was 57,000, and the electrical work is a little under 14,000 using the annual bidder.
So the total project comes to what?
Less than 75,000, so it's 57,000 plus 14,000.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds like a decrease in prices from the original proposal.
It is.
Yeah,
From
it
what
was a
budget.
budget that we made 2 years ago.
Oh, okay.
And
All right.
the Village of Ardsley installed this, and they're very happy with it. So we went down and looked at it and really liked it, and we asked if there were any piggyback clauses, and they had a piggyback clause. The
Great.
MTA, who sell,
Okay.
they sell to MTA. Saved us a lot of work, and it's a really nice system. And the other thing
Okay.
too is with our inspection machines that we just put into our central garage, you're gonna be required to run the vehicles more often as you're inspecting, so it's perfect timing.
Okay, that sounds good. All righty.
Yeah.
We're in the vote?
Yep.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, finance, establishment of the Spring Street lead service line replacement project. Whereas the village management wishes to establish a capital project for lead service line replacement on Spring Street to be financed by accumulated and available surplus fund balance. Now therefore be it resolved that the adopted budget for the water fund is modified to appropriate fund balance aggregating $114,100, and that the capital project and capital project budgets will be established as follows. And there's a increase and decrease. The whole thing will be posted on the wall of the clerk's office and is available on the webpage. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Sue?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Fire Department appointment, Washington Hook and Ladder Company Number 2. Resolved that upon recommendation of the Fire Chief, Alexander Vallone, Austin, New York, is elected as an active member of the Washington Hook and Ladder Company Number 2 for interior firefighting. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any comments?
All in favor?
Aye.
Fire Department appointment, Cataract Hose Company Number 2. Resolved that upon recommendation of the Fire Chief, Chloe, sorry. Smith, Austin, New York, was elected to active members of the Cataract Hose Company Number 2 for interior firefighting. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any comments?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Fire Department appointments, Senate Hook and Ladder, Company Number 1. Resolved that upon recommendation of the Fire Chief, Kyle Monahan? Monahan, I thought it was right. See, I was checking myself. Austin, New York, was elected to as an active member of the Senate Hook and Ladder Company Number 1 for interior firefighting. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any comments? Sue?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, continuing business of the board. Authorizing the emergency procurement of 6 2025 hybrid Ford police interceptors from New Holland Auto Group. Whereas the Village of Austin's procurement policy identifies emergency procurements as an exception to competitive bidding requirements pursuant with the General Municipal Law, Section 103, in paragraph 4. And whereas the Village of Austin Police Department is scheduled for the purchase of 3 electric vehicles in 2023 and 3 in 2024, and whereas efforts of the Austin Police Department to locate the electric marked police vehicles was unsuccessful to date, and whereas the village is considering the purchase of hybrid vehicles due to the difficulty in locating all electric police vehicles, and whereas the police department personnel would have been able to locate 5 hybrid police, six hybrid police vehicles for purchase in Pennsylvania. And whereas there is a need for these 6 police vehicles, and therefore a great concern if the vehicles are not secured, the department will find it more difficult to locate available hybrid, not to mention electric police vehicles for purchase. And now therefore be resolved, the Board of Trustees determines that an emergency exists warranting the use of emergency procurement exceptions for the village's procurement policy, and whereas resolved that, and be it further resolved that the village manager is authorized to sign the purchase order for 6 2025 hybrid Ford Police Intercept utility vehicles from New Holland Auto Group, 508 West Main Street, New Holland, Pennsylvania, 17557. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
For the amended?
Second.
We got all the 6s, so, yeah, okay.
Second.
Bob?
So just so we're clear, there has been difficulty and challenges in getting hybrid vehicles. When we had a budget meeting just last week, it looked like we weren't going to even be able to get hybrids. It might have to go back to fossil fuel, which we hope not to. So we're really excited that the department was able to locate 6 hybrid vehicles in Pennsylvania. Dale, do you want to just update us? Is it possible to pull the PO and all of that you were working on, or we don't know yet?
Yes, good evening, Mayor
Good evening.
and Board. I did reach out to the its group really that holds the Sourcewell contract to make sure that we could cancel that PO before we move forward. And it was fine because our purchase order that we had submitted back in April of this year still was not picked up for production. So we were okay to be able to cancel it and move forward. And actually the cost is slightly less per vehicle, which is good because then we're not going to go over the budget that we had already established the last 2 years for these vehicles.
All good news.
All in favor?
Aye.
You have a
Chief, you're
negative
ready to
continuing
go.
business?
Get those cars.
We're very excited. It took a long time to locate these vehicles, and we're happy we're finally doing
Yeah.
much needed.
No, we're happy about that. Okay.
Okay, we have one more item that's not on the agenda for continuing business. However, I did email the board. During the budget meetings, we discussed recreation fees. We do have a requirement for all downtown revitalization initiative projects that the fees for non-residents cannot be more than double the fee for residents. And we had a slight discrepancy in the membership fee. This is the membership ID card fee for the community center. As you will remember, residents pay $10 a year for that card, and non-residents were paying $45. The board gave direction at that meeting to change the fees to address this discrepancy so that we can make sure that we qualify for the DRI funds that will pay for the renovation of the center. And in recognition that we had not raised the fees in considerable amount of time, the decision was, direction was to raise the resident fee to $20 per year per person, and then lower the non-resident fee to $40. There was also a discussion of fact of we don't want to have residents subsidizing non-residents for I think somewhat obvious reasons. So we did look at fees for other programs. The other programs that, none of the other programs that qualify, none of the fees are necessarily double. The non-resident fees are not double the resident cost. However, there was a recommendation to increase them slightly more than we've increased program costs for resident programs. And I distributed a little chart that our superintendent, rec superintendent put together. So with a 22% increase in fees, program fees, there would be an incremental $2,200, which would offset the money that was lost by lowering the non-resident fee. We also, there's at 23%, it would be $3,200, and at 25%, it would be $5,500 additional revenue for non-resident fees. So this is a point of discussion. We're running out of work sessions for the rest of the year, but just to inform the board and ask for their direction in terms of adjusting non-resident program fees for the recreation center.
I think that opens up conversation or opportunity for people to sort of give direction to what the numbers are and what they want, both on the ID fees, the annual, I think is the recommendation that most of us sort of said that sounds like a good idea. Some I think might have gone higher. And then the programs. Anybody have an opinion or thought?
So the idea being that we'll charge a bit more for non-resident fees for programs to make up for it. Is that
The
the idea?
You know, I think the challenge was that we raised the annual fee, the membership fee. We hadn't raised it in a while. We do have, you know, there are increased costs associated with managing the community center, but we were not able to then raise the
Right.
non-resident fee because we're working within an objective of the DRI. So during the board meeting, we talked about that we do have increases in program fees for most of the programs of about 20% this year. Not all, but most. We did increase fees, if you remember. But the idea would be maybe increase the non-resident slightly more than the rate that we increased the resident fees to make
Right.
sure that we're not, you know, again, we want to prioritize our residents and the fact that they're paying taxes towards this where non-residents are not. That's the whole purpose of the fee differential. So
That seems logical.
I think they're asking though for the amount, so, because we're being given options here, correct?
correct.
Okay.
What are the options?
You want to read them again?
So the options would be to, if we, right now, program non-resident fees, if they were increased 22%, it would add an additional $2,200 revenue. If they're increased 23%, it would be an additional $3,200 in revenue. And if they're increased by 25%, it would be an increased $5,500 in revenue. The lost revenue from lowering the fee to $40, the ID fee is approximately $2,300.
Okay.
Well, 22% brings it close to that.
Correct.
Yeah.
All right, so does anybody have opinions about what we should be charging? I think that's what we're being asked.
Obviously, 22%, the number, I agree with that number. Sounds like your percentage. Now that I recall, I'll be comfortable with doing 22%.
22%?
Bob?
I'm fine with the 22.
Okay. Everybody else? I'll
Okay.
probably be different. I actually think we should go highest for non-residents because they're non-residents. They have options to go where they live. There's really no reason why the community center needs to be available to people who are non-residents. It's a nice thing to do, to include non-residents. Remember that people that live in surrounding areas have their own facilities. Most of the municipalities surrounding us have community centers as well, and they have private options like Club Fit and all these other places. So I actually would charge them the most possible. If I'm a minority of one, then so be it. I'm not looking to make up the difference that we lose a non-residents. I'm actually looking for non-residents to pay more than a fair share for using facilities and taking up space and time and services that residents are being taxed for. So that would be my feeling, but I'm going to go with the majority. So if everybody wants to stay with covering the expected loss, although I would like to see a way to measure this no matter what we do for next year and see what effect this really has, because we might have to make some changes a year from now. If we sort of didn't hit them, these are all estimates. We don't really know what it's going to do. I mean, we're just guessing here. So a year from now, we need to, I think, look at this and probably think about adjusting whatever we did. And this all meets the DRI requirements?
Yes, this would still be all within the DRI.
That differential?
qualifications.
Okay. Is there a problem?
This will just be when the fee, when we adopt the fee. No, when we adopt the fees.
Okay, so everybody's good with what they said? So 22% is the winner? Okay,
Great. All right, we're going to move on to new business of the board. Authorizing.
do we have to vote on any of
No,
that,
no,
or
because
it's
you're
just,
voting, you'll vote on the fee
on the
schedule.
fees? Okay, so this is just, okay. Let's keep going.
Authorizing the village manager to sign a license agreement with Denny Street LLC in regard to a minor encroachments on village-owned property. Whereas a deed dated September 7th, 2017, Denny Street LLC became the owner of property at 7 Denny Street in the village of Austin, which the property had a tax identification number of 89.15-2-63. And whereas a survey of the property was prepared by William E. James, PEPLS. Such survey was dated August 25th, 2017, and whereas the Board of Trustees previously authorized the village manager to sign a license agreement with the property owner regarding the property owner's planned removal and reconstruction of a stairway on the Yale Avenue side of the project, which the stairway encroached onto village-owned property, and whereas the property owner now proposes to remove the building's second and third floor decks, replace exterior doors on the first and second floor with windows to be constructed on a roof structure over the first floor, and whereas the revised plan for the work provided by MCK Engineering PC included the installation of 4 footings of the building, which footings would depicted on the plans as minimally encroaching on the village of owned property along Denny Street. And whereas the following communication from the building inspector and the corporation counsel, the owner's representative was made aware of the encroachment and that the license agreement between the village and the property owner would be necessary to allow the footings to be installed as part of the proposed work. And whereas the encroachment resulting from the installation of the footings will have no greater than depicted in the revised plans, now therefore be resolved that upon review, the Corporation Council, the village manager is authorized to sign a license agreement with Denny Street LLC to permit the encroachment onto village-owned property as depicted in the revised plan and permit documents. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second?
Is there any comments or
You do.
questions? I'm sure you do.
I have a lot of questions.
Yeah, I'm happy that you have a lot of questions.
All right, so Stuart, so this is, help me understand a little bit better on this one. So this is totally separate from the previous agreement that we had with them, correct?
Yes, different location of the house.
I understand that. Without in the drawings. So could you please tell me, because unfortunately Joe is not here, the building inspector, so not sure who can help me understand a little bit better what he's actually proposing. Because when I looked at the photo, when I'm looking at the Google Map photo view, it's unclear of me what actually the scope of work, what is he trying to accomplish?
Wants to take out the two decks which are falling apart, basically close them up and put a roof over the first floor.
So not close them up, but removal of all those items and
Yes.
removing the doors
Yep.
of all that
Yes.
area. Now, and I know this is not part of our purview, but out of curiosity, when I'm looking at the elevation, is he not putting windows back side?
I don't have an answer for you to that, sir.
Okay. Well, I understand that. And I know that's not part of that. Now, my second question is, he's putting footings in. Why is he not putting a whole continuous footing instead? Know that?
I do not know that answer.
Who can answer those questions?
You'd have to speak with the building inspector. Then I have to speak with the applicant who put it before. Part of the plan.
Yeah. But no one's been able to answer.
Right, so, okay. What's the time essence? What is the, it's hard to vote on things when people's questions can't be answered. So what is there an emergency scenario here? What's going on here?
An application that was presented, a request was made to me for a license agreement. Not have an answer for you. One can look at the photograph and see that it does appear that those decks are rather poor shape. Something that's imminent, I can't answer that question. Again,
Which is-
what we were dealing with here was very simple. Were footings that have a minimal encroachment. Board would like to present this at the December 4th meeting and have the building inspector.
Has it went to any of the land use boards yet?
Wouldn't be a land use board application.
So the encroachment.
Planning?
Just-
No? All right, thank you.
I'm looking at his pictures because I can't get a good
so
sight
the
on mine.
encroachment is-
Right. I'm gonna take the two things
So
off,
he's,
okay.
he's in.
Right,
Which
got
is
it.
the-
And he's taking down those patios and
taking out the
replacing what
patios.
there? Nothing? So he's taking out those rundown decks, nothing goes, but on the bottom, he's redoing the footings and it'll take a few inches, it looks like, into the,
At the most.
a few inches at the most, okay. All right,
Less of an encroachment than on the Yale Avenue side.
I mean, it's all so tight there
Yeah,
that,
but
yeah.
building- The other encroachment was literally just where it was existing when they were replacing the stairs. They didn't add less. On
Okay.
this one, I'm not sure what the agreement will be. My concern is, and I know he's an engineer, and I respect that. Concern that I have is just putting 4 footings into an enclosed environment. not going to be suitable for what they were trying to accomplish. My suggestion would be to have a continuous footing, just like a regular, just like a regular addition. That will mean that they will have to have more access to the sidewalk.
But they're not
Or
asking
bigger.
for that.
No,
And that
I
might be a
understand.
bigger problem
Correct.
for the community because
Correct.
now it's a bigger encroachment. Okay, so I get it. So you don't really have a problem with the overall encroachment, which is what is being asked. You just think from your own knowledge that
Yeah,
it should be done differently.
Correct. And
Okay.
not only that, but again, is a little bit unclear on how he's approaching this and how he's securing that in regards to the site plan. The site plan is not really clear in how he's trying to accomplish. Because obviously, all is bigger. I'm not sure if all that stuff taken into consideration. So
But our role is to see whether the encroachment is large, not the, I don't know, what to say, the exact work and stuff.
Yep.
Bob, did you say you have questions or did you comment or whatever?
No, I agree with Manny. I mean, the building inspector should be here to answer any of these questions. So I'm in favor of tabling it until we see our building inspector in front of us.
Okay. Anybody else have questions? I'm trying to understand if we wait, we don't have a meeting next week. We'll go into,
December 4th.
sorry,
December 4th.
December 4th, if that causes a problem.
Mayor, if I may, and
Person.
just to go back to what you were saying, and I understand what two trustees are pointing out.
Mhm.
The issue before this board is a license agreement of basically inches
Mhm.
involving 4 footings. The issue is not what the construction's going to be. That gets reviewed by the building inspector if he has an issue with that. I would say this, if Joe had an issue with what he's doing, I'm sure that would have been presented. This is, what happened is Joe had a communication with the engineer and the owner, and basically they all realized that they would have to come before this board for the license agreement. So that's where this is. I can't speak to the exigencies of the circumstance. I can only say that what we're looking at is an encroachment, which, as I heard the trustee Quezada say, most of these footings may well be just on the property line itself. If there is an encroachment, it is minuscule. But again, I will defer to the board, obviously, as to what they want to do. But the issue as to the best way to do this is different than whether or not he should be permitted to have a encroachment that he has with regard to his plans. If those plans are not correct, we would have to come back and we would have to redo a license agreement. Because right now it's based solely upon what is in his site plan.
okay, so I'm gonna throw something back. So this is based on these drawings, based on what is dated here. This project started in February 5th, 2024. Has multiple revisions from June, July, August, October. The latest one is October 25th.
Mhm.
So that to me, that should be more than enough time, either from the building department to send this back to your store, that to us, the middle of the summer. So for me, that perspective, seems like there was no rush from either the homeowner or the engineer, or in our end. Well, so
I don't think
I
that's
don't-
fair. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
No,
Sure, that's
excuse me.
fine.
You're
You
now,
can disagree
because you're
with me
maligning the
all you
building
want.
department for absolutely no reason. To go by the fact that there were reviews of different plans and say, well, that means that the building department was essentially sitting on their hands.
I didn't
Absolutely
say that.
false.
I did not
But
say
that's
that.
how you're implying it,
Okay,
and that's
I
what's
did
on the
not say
record.
that. Don't put words in my mouth, please.
I'm not. I'm just
Okay,
going by
well,
what
you
you
are.
just said.
So at this point, again, I understand that there's very minimum the encroachment. My concern is they'll have to come back in front of us. So I would like to ask, again, I'm just a minority in here. So whatever the rest of the board, the majority of the board feels like it's fine. We've done something similar to this in the past. And the concept, I have no problem. My concern is all the details that I'm thinking that it may cause a delay for their own project itself.
Do we have a,
Okay, I want to clarify something. When the board is asked for information, the same way that Andy is here to give us information, same way that Dale is here to give us information by Zoom, which is very convenient. If we're asked to vote on something, it should not be presented to us of what we're only voting on. We have an issue with that. The reason the board is asked to vote on things isn't a matter of like annoyance to people. It's a matter of like, it's an opportunity for us to find out what's going on and to ask questions. It is true that sometimes there will be no questions, but it is not really a staff position to say, I don't need to have somebody here because it's a very minor detail. It's a minor detail, we shouldn't be voting on it in the first place. So I think it's been brought up before that if we want to have the ability to ask the appropriate staff person who can answer the questions, then we will. It actually is not the attorney's issue to answer questions on the site itself. Joe should have been here for the 5 or 10 minutes. He could have been texted, so it doesn't take a lot of his time when we got to this, and we got to it pretty quickly today. It's not an unfair request by board members to be able to ask people who can answer their questions, regardless of whether they're directly voting on it, because we're indirectly voting on it. May not be seen as the most important issue, but clearly there are people here who want to ask the people who are involved in it the questions they want to ask. It's not supposed to be curated to the lowest common denominator and be put in front of us. We've had this conversation before. If we have to vote on something, the people who have information need to be in the room. Similar to Andy being here and similar to, to Dale being here. And similar, it happens to be that the chief is here, but if the cars for the police were up bat, I would have expected him to be here, whether it's a work session or not, because his department is the one requesting, and if we have questions, that's who we should be asking. It's not an unfair request, and it doesn't matter if it's 10 feet or 10 millimeters. Not everybody needs information, but enough people do, and we've had this conversation before. I don't think it's an unreasonable request, except if this really delays the project and really messes up a timeline for somebody. I don't have a problem in tabling it. That's what you want to do, and that'll do a 3 vote, and I can go to the right. I just think this
There's not a
concept,
sense of urgency, then
well, I don't know. That is
Well,
the
that's
important,
what I'm saying.
for me, I don't think it's for Manny, but for me, that is the most important thing, because our delayed vote or tabling might cause a real problem for others. That would not be my intention. If it doesn't cause a problem, I don't have a problem with tabling. And I just want to say that when we are asked to vote, we want people in this room. It doesn't matter if it's of minor consequence or of major consequence. Otherwise, I don't even understand why we need a board, to be honest with you. It sort of works both ways for me, and that's my commentary. I'm actually, don't know if it's the right way to do it or the wrong way.
No,
It ain't
but- yeah.
my gig.
Yeah,
But I should be able to ask questions of people who are involved with it. I always do feel bad that Dale sits here for hours and we ask her like 1 minute of questions. But sometimes those 1 minute is what changes an opinion.
Right.
It clarifies for the public, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
and not only that, Mayor, and I'm sorry to.
I was going to
we
go to this
usually-
side of the
yeah,
room, but go ahead.
just- And this, and then I'm down for this one. We usually get this in a work session, we have a discussion. And, that's what we have done, when we have done agreements with encroachments on sidewalks, parking and anything like that, that they have to come in front of us, so it's, but yeah.
Yeah, look, the good news that it went to many iterations. I disagree, Manny, a little bit with you. I actually think that's a good thing. That means people who are supposed to look at this looked at it, asked for changes, went back. That to me, when you have a lot of iterations, means that somebody's working really hard to make sure that it's done correctly. I always view that as a good sign. Some people may not, because it might be an annoyance to them, but I think people worked hard to get it to this place. We're talking about millimeters here. I totally get it. Not the point. The point is we should be able to ask questions. What do you
Mayor, may I
guys
just say one thing?
say?
The
Yeah.
reason that it did not go to a work session is this was presented to me after last week's work session. Don't have a work session next week.
Right.
And our next work session would not be until the 11th of December. I just wanted from a
Right.
scheduling perspective to be understood.
Right. It could be brought up, though, at the next meeting under the way it was brought up tonight, though, legislative session.
That's correct. But I
Right.
did want to understand what the timeline was.
No, I understand. Okay, do you guys have any opinions on this or not?
Well, I'm sorry.
Go for it.
No, I feel I have enough information to vote.
Okay, and you?
Same.
Same, okay. And do you, I just want to run through this. I'm feeling like the tiebreaker, but I need to know.
50-50.
Bob, can you speak into the microphone?
Is it on? I don't think you're,
I
yeah,
didn't
there you
have
go.
I didn't even have it near me. I understand what trustee Casada's saying. I'm 50-50 on it. It just, it's the principle of not having the person here to be able to answer the questions. And it could have been a simple 1, 2, 3. So moving forward, we solved that. I'm okay with this.
Okay, so 50-50, Bob, I just need a yay or nay. I can't, she can't do a 50-50. on the
No, well, I was
vote.
50, I'm 50, I'm okay with it.
You're okay with it. Okay, Manny, are you changing it?
I think,
Okay.
again, not. Like I said before, I don't, in concept, just very minimum. I think someone would actually explain to me, this is the reasons why they're doing what they're doing. I feel that the encroachment bigger than what we're seeing.
Okay, but they're not
but
gonna,
that's,
but they
again,
can't do that. We're only gonna approve what's in front of us. Okay, so we're back. We'll do the vote. I'm gonna change mine, but I'm gonna tell you that if we don't have people from staff that are able, I don't know why I'm talking to you, Sue. If we don't have, I'm like looking at you because, it's a pleasant face to look at. Why not, right? In general, we need to have the people who are actually involved in this, to answer the questions so that we don't have this conversation, which I prefer not to have going forward again, because we've been here before. So vote.
I can presume there's a fee going to be set on this?
I don't know what it is.
The fee that I would propose is what it was with the last one for this same property, which was $500.
Oh, I thought you were doing a follow-up. That was it?
No,
Okay.
no, because
So, well-
usually there's
Yeah, there's a
fee
fee,
attached.
So,
but it's the same one.
so it seems like it's moving forward for the majority. So Stuart, besides the fee, because this, when they do these footings, sidewalk is gonna get damaged. I'm assuming there's gonna be some sort of repair to the sidewalk as well, correct?
They will be responsible
And
for
that
all
will
of
be
that.
part of the
Yes, sir.
agreement that is gonna be signed.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. All right, Sue, we're in the middle of vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Staying.
One abstain.
And I'm gonna change to an I because there's already a majority, and as long as we have an understanding that if this comes up again, we're tabling whatever comes up.
Okay. All right, moving on. Agreement with Labella Associates, DPC, for building department support. Resolved that the following review of Corporation Counsel, the village manager is authorized to sign an agreement with Labella Associates, DPC, 1 North Broadway, Suite 803, White Plains, New York, 10601, whereby Labella will supplement village building department plan review and coordination services. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Wait,
Hold on.
hold on. I
uh,
have questions.
This is new business.
This is, so, Karen, please. Explain to us. What is this about? What is it?
So I will give the overarching concept here, and I'm sure Maddie, who's more closely involved in the technical day-to-day aspects. One of the, as we all know, we live in a pretty diverse community, and it's in diverse in many great ways, but also the type of projects that are happening range from that, our building inspectors are being asked to weigh in on, range from putting on a deck to really oversight of fairly significant, large-scale, multifamily, multi-use projects. We also know that it is difficult to staff to the degree and the depth of experience that you need to handle all of these things. We really can't afford all of the specific expertise that we would necessarily need, or the manpower under one roof. So one of the ways we've done this, and we've done it successfully with the planning department as well, is to work with consulting groups that can provide support and a deeper bench for services that will facilitate our ability to streamline our process. And when I say streamline, make it easier, make it more predictable, make it also more guarantees that things are being done in the right way, that things are being inspected in reasonable timeframes. And that's really the overarching reason why we looked to Labella to supplement those inspection needs that we have at the village level, particularly for the larger projects. The building department, the inspector and the assistant inspector would still be responsible for sort of the day-to-day inspections, but when it comes to the much larger inspections that are more involved, this could give them more bandwidth to address those and more support, and also facilitate getting things done in a timely fashion.
Okay, I guess go to Maddie. So I guess, thank you, Karen. So Maddie, you want to, all right, thank you.
Okay, good evening. You'll have to excuse me, I'm starting to lose my voice, so if I just start making faces, that's why. So Karen explained the lion's share of sort of the overarching need for this. I've been working closely with the building department since November of 2022. And as the board knows better than anybody, we have a lot of very, very large projects that are coming into Ossining at different stages. Some of them, like Open Door, are getting close to the end. Some of them, like 30 Water, are about to break ground. And then some of them are still sort of in that general pipeline. And sort of what we've learned is that what we call the building department, which is building department and code enforcement, is sort of diverging into two separate directions. We have a lot less in the middle. So we have a lot more code enforcement, and we have a lot more sophisticated, higher level technical review that is going to be necessary. So what we are presenting tonight to the board is something that we've been working on and sort of tooling with the help of the building inspector, Joe Augustinelli, as well as Stuart, as well as our planning consultant, as well as our engineering consultants, as well as Paul Fraioli, to really try to understand where we have potential gaps and where we need to bolster the services that we already have. So we've added the draft agreement to the agenda. And this is after a couple back and forths with Labella. It is presumed that there will be one specific representative from Labella that we'll be working with directly. So it's intended to be similar to our arrangement with Nelson Pope, where we have one primary contact, and then, should they need to tap somebody else in for specialty, they can do that. But really, there are three different facets. And if this is too much detail for what the board is looking for at this moment, just raise a hand. I'll give sort of a brief overview, and then you can tell me when it's enough. The first one is exactly what Karen was just mentioning, supplementing our building inspector and assistant building inspector with some of the special inspections. This is basically in the instance where someone is absent, if they need more than 2 people on the site for whatever reason, if it's something a little bit more complicated. We don't anticipate that to be something that happens often. We think this is just really, if we have a very serious project going on and the contractor needs to meet a deadline, and for whatever reason we're short-staffed, because we often are, unfortunately, Labella will be able to come in and supplement. And again, we could not have gotten as far as we are now without the help of Stuart, because as you might imagine, this is somewhat complicated when you have consultant groups who are bolstering staff groups, particularly those who are of a quasi-law enforcement capacity, as our building inspectors and code enforcement are. So this is a little bit complicated. So that's one area that they will be helping us with, but probably...
Maddie, can I pause you for 1 minute before you go to the phase 2 on that one?
Oh, yeah.
So in phase 1, when you're talking about large-scale buildings and special inspections, New York State requires a third-party special inspection. That has nothing to do with it. I just want to make sure that is clear.
That is clear, but might I ask you, I'm actually going in reverse order because it goes from most complicated to least complicated.
So 3 years.
So phase 3 is the one I just mentioned, which
it.
is the supplemental inspection services.
Got you. Okay, sorry.
And that would not be something that would be escrowed. That would just be something that, the building permit fees pay for by design. Now, again, going in reverse order, we've asked that Labella provide at least 2 hours every week in office. And that'll make a little bit more sense when we talk about the initial phase, but basically helping our building inspector, helping our building department staff to make sure that there are no gaps, right? So to have an agendaed meeting that lasts no less than 2 hours, so we make sure that we're staying on task, but also to make sure that all bases are covered and that we're connecting all of those dots. I envision that at least at first, I will also be part of those meetings with Labella and with our building inspector. Again, just to make sure that everybody is on the same page. And then, to your point, Trustee Casada, phase 1 is the one where it gets a little bit more complicated. So if it's all right, can I stop here and see if there's any questions on those back 2 elements?
So the first phase 3 and phase 2, So obviously the phase 2, because that's an additional 2 hours a week, that will be additional, but not to the taxpayers. It will be part of the consultant fee that we're going to be paying within our budget itself.
That would come out of operating. That would
Yeah.
not be escrowed,
Okay.
but it would come out of operating. That's
Okay.
correct.
All right.
Would be a consulting service. And Trustee Casada and Trustee Fritchie, if you've had a chance to look at it, I unfortunately didn't get to upload it until this afternoon. We think the rates are quite competitive. We feel strongly that we're going to be able to get a lot done in that 2 hours, and that it's priced competitively enough so that this is not going to be a budget buster. So of course, certainly we can, revisit other elements of that. And again, there's a staffing salary schedule, so that if it's not Mr. Turiano specifically who's going to be assisting us, we can see, the rates for those varied staff. Is there anything else on those two?
So yes,
Yep.
for the weekly meeting, more or less, I'm going to defer that to Dell. We consider this into our budget itself. Yes. Oh. All right.
If there aren't any other questions on those other two elements, which again are spelled out in the proposal, which is listed in the agenda, I'll talk about the phase 1 component, and all of this an escrowed service, which basically means it's paid for by the applicant in addition to their building permit fee. The easiest part to describe is the first element, which I think under phase 1 is called just a scope building code review. But what we'd really like to do is, again, similar to what Karen described, is have Labella take on the role of doing a plan review for things that don't need to go to a land use board, anything that's a commercial property or 3-family or greater residential. So again, things that typically would be done by, I think it's JHW is the company that we're currently using, which we have to ship out, and there's some back and forth. This would basically be replacing a service that we already have to some degree, but there would be set parameters on when we send it to them. So it would be very turnkey. It wouldn't be a question of our building inspector having to look at it, having to ask, having to inquire. It would basically be a hard and fast rule. If it's commercial construction or if it's residential 3 units or more, it would automatically go to Labella. And again, similar to how when we work with JHW now, get a proposal from Labella to say how much, is your code review going to be on this project? The applicant would send us an escrow check, and then they would do the work.
So right now, that's what we're doing right now.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, that's not changing.
That's not, so from the public's view, nothing will change here except the name of the person who's doing the review. And, hopefully the pricing, like I said, because it's competitive, we might be able to do a little bit better. But the benefit to this is that we will have that local in-person touch with the person who's doing the plan review, and they can keep Joe in the loop a little bit better. Not to suggest that JHW isn't doing that, but it's a little harder to be communicating with people who are not right nearby. So we think just as sort of a bigger comprehensive solution, this is a good element for Labella to start with.
Yeah, sure. We don't have an agreement with that other company, correct? Just
The JHW?
correct.
No, it's on
Just on a project
an
basis.
as-needed basis.
Thank you.
Before I get into the really messy one, does anyone have any other questions? So the next element, which is labeled scope, escrow estimation, large-scale code review, and special inspection coordination. Escrow estimation is something that, upon continuing discussions with our various consultants, we no longer think is going to be necessary. But basically, in a nutshell, even though it's probably going to be taken out, this would be something Labella would provide that would help us to understand what amount we need to take into escrow to get the projects from the land use board approvals through the end of construction. Certainly, you take 30 Water Street as an example, there are site elements that would need to be considered by an engineer. There are structural elements that would need to be considered. And then there's fire code review and things of that nature. So it was originally conceived that Labella could help us to sort of package that into an escrow estimate. We have since decided that that's probably not a necessary component, and we don't want to charge people for something extra that we probably do good enough job working with our current consultants. So for all intents and purposes, we can ignore that. We're going to ask them to take it out of the agreement.
Can you pause for 1 second though? Would it make more sense to have them do that as part of the process? Because they're actually,
That's where we landed. Yeah.
yeah, for me will be, because they're going to be reviewing the drawings, not to take away from the other consultants that we have, but I will disagree with that. I will rather keep that in here. And I don't have the hourly rates of the other consultants, but I think whoever is going to be doing the review, the highest one is $210. What is the price of other consultants that be doing that job for us?
So I guess what I was trying to say without saying it is that if we ask the consultants to come up with that on their own, to look at the plan and say, I think it's going to take me 20 hours and that equates to a $10,000 proposal, they'll just produce the proposal instead of having Labella charge us by the hour to sit down, look at those
Gotcha.
rate schedules. There are more than one way to skin a cat, right? I don't think we're ready to throw it out completely. So we might want to leave it in the contract. We have to talk to Paul about this a little bit more because this was sort of late breaking that we decided maybe this isn't the best way. But what's the real salient point of everything that I've said and will finish saying? Labella can do a lot for us. There's definitely a very deep bench there, as Karen mentioned. Right now, the agreement that we're looking at is really just to like get our foot in the door, get a level of comfortability working with them. But some of the things that in our conversations have been brought to light are things that this board has been asking for support with for many years that we don't have enough hands, we don't have enough eyes, we don't have enough brains. There's a lot of work to do. One example is I know that this board has talked in the past about various ideas about making sure that buildings are code compliant. In some communities, they have a program where you need to have an inspection in order to get a CO when you sell the property, when you change hands. That is likely too heavy a lift for us at this moment in time. But Labella has had a lot of helpful experience in some of the Sound Shore communities doing something similar where they check the sewer laterals. And that sort of helps, keep the integrity of their sewer system while also making sure that, they're having some sort of access to a property owner and making that connection when a sale is pending. So ideas like that we can sort of workshop through with them and then bring to the board, I think is going to be tremendously valuable. So all that is to say, that's not what we're talking about here, but there's a lot of nuggets that I think we can, sort of tease out over the next year that's going to be enormously helpful. And I think the escrow estimation, we may want to use now, we may want to wait, but that's one of the many things I think that they can help with.
So, and now when Maddie, so that will be an option that we have. Sure, we don't have to, even though, for argument's sake, if the board is in agreement of signing this contract, or Karen signing the contract on behalf of the board, that option, I'm going to call it option Y. We don't have to use it.
We can leave it in and not
We can
use
leave
it,
We
absolutely.
can leave it there, and as you guys see them, as you start working with them, see the value of them, then you can start them in a matter with that option in there instead of coming back to the board and try to revise that so you can bring it back. That's just that's my opinion.
I think we're open. I think, we've been sort of workshopping this for a while. We're trying to make sure all the people who would be affected are sort of, have a hand in the process. There are some differing opinions about whether this was the most effective way to do it. I agree with you that leaving it in doesn't hurt, so I would be fine with that if that's what the board wants.
And there's not a monthly fee. There's not
a retainer.
fee that is
No.
literally just an hourly rate. And then, so because my other question will be, who's going to be the liaison from their end to us on this particular case? Because that depends on the hourly rate. Like who's coming in? Who's going to be the person who you're going to communicate all the time?
Our primary touch point is Mr. Turiano.
Yeah.
And in his absence, or if it's something that's a different specialty, then it would be someone else.
Yeah.
But that was an important.
He'll be the person also coming into the weekly meetings,
Correct.
or it will be somebody else?
No, it will be him.
Okay.
That was sort of an important element, to make sure that we keep that continuity, because that's sort of the whole point of a lot of this, right? Is making sure that nothing's falling through the cracks, that we have a very solid foundation, no pun intended, in sort of, what we're looking to do here, and consistency is a big part of that.
Anybody else?
I'm okay with it.
Bob? Anybody here?
I still have 2 more bullet points. You want me to stop talking?
Going.
Stopping is okay.
Okay.
Can I just sort of encapsulate the whole thing? It sounds like our building department has a lot with code enforcement and a lot, especially with big projects coming in. We have X number of hands available to us. This will supplement a lot of the growth and also make sure that the code enforcement is done as best as it can by getting supplemental help. Have a bucket with big projects and a bucket with small projects. And the big projects will probably be handled by a group with a deep bench of expertise. You're starting the relationship, you have a liaison. If you like it and it's working, you're probably going to add a few more requests because they have the deep bench. We don't have the deep bench, and we're no longer a sleepy little village. And we have surpassed that, and it's now creating more angst than probably need be. So this is a solution to that scenario. And with the DRI projects coming in over the next 5 years, it sounds like building a relationship with a company that could be of help to our department is a smart way to go, because hiring folks and getting everybody to speed may not be the solution as it's been in the past. And also, a consulting firm with a deep bench that works with other municipalities will enlighten us to more things that we may not have even thought about. Did I hit all the basic pieces here? Okay. Sounds like a good idea. It doesn't sound like there's a retainer, which means that there has to be a point when the board should be allowed to analyze the effectiveness on this. Is this included in your whole mantra here? So that we can make sure we're on target with where we want to be.
Mayor, that's a
Like,
really good
what's the
question.
success metrics
I
is
have
my
to think
question.
about that
Okay.
because frankly, this has just been pulling this together and making sure that I have a complete understanding of what it is that's going to be required.
Well, when you have the complete understanding, you'll have to run for mayor. So let's assume that won't happen in the near future. But there should be success metrics. There has to be some key metrics that say if we hit this, I mean, we need that. That's just something professionally done that says this is really what we're looking for if we hit them. And there has to be room for also getting out of contracts, which I don't have to go into. So, but I do think this is one of those scenarios where you're going to learn as you go. I mean, I don't think there's a set some metrics for success so that we know how to look at this going forward, not just you guys or people that are in the know. It's not our job to understand construction, and it's just, people understand it, that's a plus, but it's not part of what we should be asking. So I hope that there's some metrics that we can look at and say, yeah, we hit them. Yeah.
So to add
ahead.
to that, and Maddie, that will be obviously for next year that I'll be watching,
I don't doubt it.
of course. But my 2 cents are now, and like everything else, we like when you have done with parking, you do the analysis after a couple for budget. I'm sure you'll be able to go back and see this is what we have done in the past 2 quarters, 3 quarters at that point. And that you can bring that back to the board as I'd be like, this is what we have done. This is comparison to 2024. And that's what the success portions that the mayor is asking for. And that will be valuable. That's what I'd be looking for as well.
I understand completely. I just think well, yes, I understand.
Yeah. And just keep in mind, I mean, some of this stuff is going to be helping. The hardest part for us that we have gone through many years is getting the right staff.
And it's not going to be easier in the
It's not gonna be
next 3
easier.
years.
Not at all.
Yeah.
So I think this will help, and obviously we'll have some savings.
Yeah.
Code enforcement wise, and I believe an assistant building inspector as well. So this will sort of, I don't want to say even it out, but it will definitely help a lot of the stuff that we are going through. I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I think the board is fine. I don't need to go farther because you've already, and in sales, if people agree and don't want more information, the answer is don't give them more. Look how the clerk is
Yes.
agreeing with that statement. But I do want qualitative metrics and quantitative. It doesn't, it's not always a science, but it would be helpful. Okay, so I think what we're here to do, if I'm not mistaken, is to allow the village manager to sign an agreement with Labella Associates for everything that we just discussed. Is that correct?
That is correct. After review of Corporation Council.
Understood.
Right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Do I have a motion to adjourn? From
There's no
Second.
exec session, so.
all in favor?
Aye.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will see you in 2 weeks' time. It is, what is it, 8:45, 8:47. I'm looking at the old-fashioned clock onto my phone. We thank you for your time. Happy Thanksgiving to all. Enjoy the time with whoever you're spending it with, and have a great evening. Good night.